is the branch chief for the Division of Tribal TANF Management in the Office of Family Assistance. She's an enrolled member of the Tuscarora Nation, which is located 10 miles north of Niagara Falls, New York. She's a member of the Beaver Clan. Denise works from the Region 8 Denver office in Colorado. She honors and acknowledges that the land on which she resides and works is the traditional territory of the Ute, Cheyenne, and Arapaho peoples. She recognizes the 48 contemporary tribal nations that are historically tied to the lands that make up the state of Colorado. Denise wishes to honor elders past, present, and future, and those who have stewarded this land throughout generations. She also wishes to recognize that government, academic, and cultural institutions were founded upon and continue to enact exclusions and erasures of Indigenous peoples. May this acknowledgement demonstrate her commitment to working to dismantle ongoing legacies of oppression and inequities and recognize the current and future contributions of Indigenous communities in Denver, Colorado, and throughout the nation. In the capacity as the branch chief for the division, Denise has responsibility for overseeing the daily activities related to the OFA tribal programs, including Tribal TANF, Native Employment Works, and Tribal TANF Child Welfare Discretionary Grants. She's served in this position since April 2016. Previously, Denise worked in ACF for 2 other agencies, including the Administration for Native Americans and the Office of Head Start. Denise received her master's degree in early childhood special education from the University of Colorado, Denver, and her bachelor's degree in human rehabilitative services from the University of Northern Colorado. Please join me in welcoming Denise and Stan. I was not great about managing our time yesterday, so I'm going to be better about that today because I made us all late for the entire day. So I may interject, I don't mean to be rude, but I may interject to just give you a time check, Denise and Stan. And I'd like to open the floor. This session is designed to facilitate a dialogue. And so hopefully we have folks with questions who'd like to discuss issues relevant to their programs and communities. We're open to receiving any questions or recommendations on issues that folks would like to discuss. We did have one question that came in, and I can't. Steve, do you happen to have that? I'm sorry, I can't seem to minimize my screen to get to it. We're gonna wait just a second and see if Steve has.
Julie, I have it, and
thank you, Stan.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
It comes from Don Johnson at Washoe TANF.
Washoe.
He says, with concern about the mental health of clients, what focus is being provided for the mental health of staff? We recently held a Zoom session with frontline workers that proved to be extremely emotional as staff were suffering from loss of loved ones, fear, stress, and general emotional trauma and anxiety. Compassion fatigue will undoubtedly reduce the ability of caseworkers to effectively assist participants. We must take good care of employees so they can take good care of TANF recipients. And Don, I completely agree. We need to take care of our staff. And I think that one session today is actually going to be a little bit focused on that, and we'll be able to provide you some ideas about that. Julie, do you want to give a quick sketch of what that session is and what we're looking forward to?
Sure. Our last session today is designed to address the stress and the anxiety that the folks are experiencing right now, both on an individual level, as well as on a supervisory level and on an organizational level. So session 6 will be, it's an interactive session. Our hope is that you'll take away a toolkit for addressing the impact of traumatic stress, which is what many folks are experiencing right now. We have, the session's been delivered to staff in Nevada. We did a session just for the staff in Nevada, and they found it very effective for helping staff to work through the traumatic stress that they're all experiencing right now. So we're really looking forward to doing this session with you all. As Steve indicated in the chat box, please feel free to submit any questions to the panel through the chat box. We are awaiting your questions or any issue you would like to discuss. We are happy to discuss it. I don't know if there are questions about a continuing resolution. I saw something yesterday that indicated that the House had passed a continuing budget. So that may be something that folks have questions about. Still no questions. Would
Yeah,
folks feel better? Yeah. Go ahead,
So
Stan.
Julie, this is Stan. Yeah, and it occurred to me, we have both you and Frank Shields on the line, and the two of you were instrumental in leading the effort to bring this virtual meeting to a reality. And in doing that, you tried to take into account the needs and interests of tribes that you had heard. Can you say a little bit about how is it that you come to understand some of the needs of the tribes, and are there particular ways that they can express some of those needs even outside of this particular venue? How do you hear about those things? What kinds of response do you typically provide, and what resources are available to them?
Frank, would you like to? Okay, Frank, would you like to jump in, or?
Well, yes, I can say a little bit, but honestly, I have to give most of the credit for this meeting to Julie and her excellent staff in the San Francisco office, and Sam and Patrick, who work with me in Seattle. I mean, they've all worked very hard and tried to bring topics to the table that we thought would be relevant to everyone. What we know about our grantees mostly comes just from our work with them. And, we try to foster open communication. We want you to be able to come and ask us questions without feeling as though it's going to be a kind of gotcha situation where you ask the wrong question and then we come back and tell you you're doing something wrong, or or audit or something like that. It's a dialogue, and I really encourage my staff to keep things kind of low key and informal so that we can really get to kind of the substance of what's going on in the program. And I think the biggest resource that we have in the Seattle office is the staff, because they are very caring, they're involved, and they try their best to do a good job. And of course, Stan and Denise and the rest of the division of tribal TANF management back in DC, we have a very good dialogue with them, and we're able to work through a lot of things that come up that could be challenging, but in a little bit easier way. And we see that part of our job is to just kind of make the program work better for grantees when we can, and not be so strict with rules. And I guess that's what I want to say about that. And Sam or Patrick, is there anything that you'd like to add to that?
No, Frank, I think you got it.
I concur, Frank.
Well, thank you, Julie. Do you want to talk about what you guys are doing?
Thank you, Frank. I think that we take the same position that we're here as partners with the tribes, and each of the program specialists has developed great relationships, and that's our goal, to develop trusting partnerships with each of the tribal programs and to serve as a resource and support to those tribes in the administration of their programs. So a lot of the information that that informed the design of this meeting was gathered by the program specialists, Mika, Elma, Jennifer, Patrick, and Sam. They reached out to their tribes to ask what issues are most relevant to you right now and what issues would you like technical assistance and training on. And so that really informed the content of this meeting and what's being presented over the course of these 3 days. And we continue to, we find a lot of joy in our partnership with the tribes and in our work with the tribes, and look forward to continuing to strengthen the partnership with our tribal grantees. There are several questions that have come in over the course of this this discussion, so I'd like to put some of those forward. One question came from Karen Kyle. She asked, are we continued through 12/11, continued funding through 12/11? And that is correct. We are currently continued through 12/11, although I did see something that indicated that there was there was a vote on continuing the same budget further than 12/11, at least through January. So the second question is from Glenn Bosconsillo, and he asks if there will be future Native American Works grant opportunities. I think he's referring to Native Employment Works.
Mm-hmm.
So the Native Employment Works program was granted to those tribes and tribal coalitions that previously implemented a jobs program. And since that's really the only basis for awarding the grants, the pool of tribes that are eligible to receive the grant is remaining the same. So the Native Employment Works program is ongoing. However, we do not anticipate that additional tribes will be provided an opportunity to receive that grant who are not already receiving that grant. Thanks for that question.
Thank you, Stan.
I'll go on to the next one if you want.
Sure.
Or Julie, if you had a.
Or I can read them. I think everyone, actually there's one that was sent to me privately. So why don't I go ahead and the question is from Salam with Owens Valley. And she asks, when there are questions that ACF sees that many programs are asking about, will there be a way that ACF can provide clarification to all programs at the same time so there's a consistent response, especially now since we're all trying to help our participants as much as possible and as quickly as possible?
We try to do that, and honestly, we aspire to do an even better job. But where we have done that is in providing program instructions that provide some guidance in relation to the flexibilities that exist within TANF to address issues that have emerged with the COVID-19 pandemic. So yes, we can and we want to, and as we've been talking internally, I think we have some ideas as to additional issues that we might address in the future, and we may address those through program instructions, or we may try to post Q&As to the website, but we hope to continue to sort of build a common awareness of some of the expectations and requirements for the program, as well as what best practices are.
Thank you, Stan. The next question would like to know if there are any creative or innovative changes to tribal plans during the pandemic that help programs serve families in different ways. We usually learn from other tribes and how they come up with great ideas. So both Stan and Denise, are there any creative or innovative changes that you've seen to tribal plans during the pandemic? I guess we could also open this up to Sam, Patrick, Elma, Jennifer, and Mika, who see a lot of plans. I don't know if Tanya Davis is on. I'm sorry, I didn't see.
Yeah, Tanya would be in a really good position to be able to provide, since she reviews a lot of the plans too as well. I don't know that we have any specific examples that we could share, but I'm sure all of you could touch on that a little bit.
If anyone would like to jump in to talk about creative or innovative changes to tribal plans, one that I can think of is the use of non-recurrent short-term benefits, right? But if anyone would like to jump in.
I'll jump in. This is Michaela Smith in Region 9. And one of the main ways, and I think Deanne Harris spoke about this on the first day of the conference, she had a wealth of information that she shared of how SPIPA has responded. And so we'll make sure that we get all of those notes out and post it on the website to share that in case you missed that. That was the first session. So definitely go back and check that out. In addition to that though, and one of the items that she did highlight, a number of programs are doing like care boxes, like basic assistance, like being able to have all of the, it's been very hard. Many programs have had a hard time having access. Many communities have had a hard time finding access to essentials. And so getting that out, creating those boxes, it does really just create this great community, sense of community and support. And I've heard that that's been a really effective support right now, just in addition to the cash assistance, monthly cash assistance. So that's one to.
I think I also.
This is Jennifer.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I just wanted to mention when we were talking about boxes really quickly that I've also heard some programs have sent out boxes with activities for families. So traditional activities such as beading or traditional games that families can play. So that's another thing that I think contributes to people's mental health and well-being outside of just fulfilling their basic needs. I'm sorry, Jennifer, go ahead.
This is Jennifer. I'm from Region 9. I haven't seen much in terms of plan changes outside of non-recurrent short-term benefits being changed, but I have heard from many programs that they're doing really creative and innovative ways to approach the services. Even thinking about how they can work with folks that need to be seen in person and how they've been able to make those accommodations within their program so that they can safely socially distance or offer services in a way that they can reach folks. Everything from partnering with different tribal departments to deliver items to families so that they're not totally isolated. So it might be, say, their monthly checks or materials, folks setting out tables outside and having their windows nearby so they can see people that maybe pop by that don't have phones or things like that, so that they can get a good visual on folks and they can make themselves available. So I think there's a lot of really creative things that are coming out in policies and procedures and how to think about getting to people and reduce some of that isolation.
Hi,
Thank you
this
so much.
is Zelma, and I'm also from Region 9. I also have been fortunate to work with my grantees in implementing non-recurring short-term benefits first in the plan. And I think what helped a lot in that process was to try to give a framework of what that looked like. And then they were able to not only submit plan amendments, but actually implement the services. And they really just expanded that. And depending on that particular grantee were able to work with their own tribal departments to even maximize those services as well. Another really important area that I saw that was innovative was some virtual youth programs that I saw that our youth have not been, they're kind of lost right now, right? They can't go to school, they can't go out. And so seeing the creativity in that area has been a wonderful, wonderful experience. So we were fortunate to see some of that as well.
Thanks so much, Elma, Jennifer, and Mika. Would anyone else like to speak to that?
I'll just say that it occurs to me that that's sort of been one of the things that this meeting has been all about, is getting different kinds of representatives on different panels to talk about what it is that they've done, what the things that they found that have worked for them, and things that have posed challenges. And there have even probably been breakout groups where maybe you've heard something. And I would just encourage folks that if there was a particular idea that they heard or that resonated, that they thought, maybe this is something we can go home and do, it'd be great to include that in the chat box and share that with others.
Thank you, Stan. We do have another question from Glenn Bosconsillo. He asks if there is an update on the Tribal TANF report automation update or refresh. He is also wondering if timely Tribal TANF data reports will be available via the OFA website at the time of the upgrade or as a result of the upgrade.
So I think that this question is aimed at the fact that the Office of Family Assistance has awarded a contract to a company that will essentially redevelop what is a legacy system for processing the data. And our data team are the ones that are working most feverishly on that, and are most familiar with the specifications of it. I believe that we anticipate that within the next 1.5 to 2 years, many of the features of the new system will become available. And I think, I hate to say, I can't say this with certainty, but part of my understanding is that it will enable more direct entry for the submission of data. So right now, the data process is a little bit convoluted because tribes submit data via email. The email is received and then needs to be transferred to a server. From the server, it goes to a system which analyzes the data, and then those reports from the data become available. So there's a lot of hands that presently touch it, and it is very much a goal for it to become more automated. I'm hopeful that it will enable tribes to submit via the web data directly, and that it'll have a user interface that enables tribes to see some of their data in real time. The extent to which that becomes a reality, I'm not really sure, and I'm as anxious to find out as anybody. I think that one of the things that we're presently doing is sharing with tribes what we have in terms of the first 2 quarters of data that they submitted for 2020. And correct me if I'm getting this wrong, Denise, but I think that that's what we're doing. So even though, and it's a little bit of a weird situation because many of you would have already submitted all 4 quarters of data, but even though you've submitted 4 quarters of data, just because of our internal processing, we're now just providing feedback to you about what we have for the first 2 quarters. But hopefully, even as you review that data, if there's major problems with what you're seeing in what we're sharing compared to what you believe you have on hand, it enables us to have more time to work with you to make sure that things get straightened out. So even with the old system, we're making some improvements, and I'm optimistic that we'll have more streamlined and more automated processes when the new system comes online. Denise, is there anything that you would add or take away from that?
So I think the other piece of the question was that Glenn was asking about the delay in posting it to the OFA website. And I think one of the challenges that we encounter right now is that because we don't have an automated system, we often have a few tribes who are still working on issues related to their data. And because we're posting summary of all the tribes, sometimes that delays our ability to post that on the OFA website. So for that, we're very hopeful that that'll improve once the automated system comes through. Because right now, we literally have to, when individual tribes are having difficulties with their data, we have to pull that information aside, work with the data team in the Office of Family Assistance, and then get that back to the tribe. And so there's a lot of back and forth that's currently happening that's delaying our ability to get those posted to the website. And we hope that will improve.
Thank you. There was a clarifying question about the report that Stan was referring to. Stan, you want to speak to that?
So it sounds like there's a question. Yeah. So the report that I was talking about is the work participation report. That's the report that we have sent to tribal TANF directors. And so if that's a report that's relevant to you and you're not in receipt of it, then reach out to your regional contact and we can help figure out what's going on. But we've been sending them out. So if you haven't received it yet, you should be receiving it shortly. So in years past, we've just sent sort of a year-end work participation report, and it indicates whether you've achieved the work participation rate that you negotiated as part of your tribal TANF plan. This year, while the due date for submitting reports for all 4 quarters has passed, we are now at this point sending a work participation rate report, which is reflective of the first 2 quarters. And that gives you an indication of what we have on hand from the data that you have submitted. So that's the report that I'm talking about. At a later point in time, when we have data in for all of the tribes, we post information that is specific to each tribe, but we post that information for all of the tribes on the website. And I'm not even sure which year is the most recent year that we have posted, but we're constantly working to bring that up to date. Along with that, there was a question about having a data tech position. It sounds like you've hired a data tech or you're planning to hire a data tech person at your tribe, and you have questions about what they would do. I'm not sure that I'm the best person to answer that, and it would probably be better for other tribes to respond to that. And it's hard to tell from the chat box which tribe has requested that. And so Julie might have a better idea about that. But it varies because with the data, I would imagine that different tribes have different processes for how the data is collected from the participants and how it's entered into the system. And then once it's entered into the system, it also needs to be transferred from your system to our system. And you would want to have some way, even in working with your own system, to have a sense of what your aggregate data looks like. And so there's a variety of aspects to the data, and I would venture to guess that there is some variation among tribes as to the roles and responsibilities of a data tech person.
I think that was a great answer. And if anyone has would like to respond to this question and provide information about what their data tech does, if they've got a data tech position in the first place, and what does that data tech do, if they input data, if they manage the data through the platform or software that the tribe uses, for WPR and for caseload, and various aspects of the case, the data associated with the case. We would welcome your input either verbally or via the chat. We've got 15 more minutes, approximately 14 more minutes. So if you could please submit your questions or topics that you would like Denise and Stan to address, we'd be happy to do that. You can
Julie,
also
this is
send a
Mika.
chat. Sure. Hi.
Hi, I just wanted to chime in on that question about the data tech position, that it really does depend on the size of the tribe. So for some programs, that position might be very focused just on certain aspects of the data. But another plug to go back to session 1 from this conference, Amber Young was amazing at talking about data and talking about IT, talking about cybersecurity, and some really important things to keep in mind. And depending on the size of your program, that data tech position could be very instrumental in thinking about some of those important internet security, confidentiality issues that they could be supporting your program on. So just want to put in that plug.
Super great point. Thank you, Mika. Great point. So again, you're welcome to submit your questions in the chat, either privately to me or to everyone, or privately to Denise and Stan. You can pick their, you can go into the little text box and pick whoever you'd like the question to go to. You can also ask Steve, he's also in that drop-down box, if he can unmute you and you can verbally ask your question, but we have about 13 more minutes in this session. This is a great opportunity to speak directly to Denise and Stan. You often are submitting your questions or inquiries through the regions, and this is a great opportunity to ask them directly what you might be submitting through the regions instead of asking directly. Here we go from Jeremy at Round Valley. Could a tribal TANF program assist with vaccine support services or offer a family an incentive for taking a vaccine? That's a really great question, Jeremy. Thank you. So I'm assuming that you're referring to a COVID vaccine. And again, the question is, could a tribal TANF program assist with vaccine support services or offer a family an incentive for taking a vaccine?
So thanks for that question. Without knowing more information, I'll give you a sense for how we think about questions generally, because I think you'd also want to provide a rationale for what it is that you're hoping to accomplish, or what you think the vaccine will do in relation to the goals of TANF. So generally, there's 2 questions that we ask. Number 1 is, does it fulfill or does it align with the TANF purpose? And so if on the face of it, there's not an immediate natural connection between vaccination and helping people move toward employability or self-sufficiency, you'll have a responsibility in submitting a request like that to provide a rationale for how assisting with a vaccine support service is can be reasonably calculated to accomplish the purposes of TANF. So that's sort of the first question that we always ask. And for example, if there were opportunities for TANF recipients to be trained to assist with the vaccination process, then that would be a golden opportunity that we would love to see TANF recipients gain work experience in that kind of setting. Beyond answering that first question of does it fulfill a TANF purpose, the second question that we're always interested in is how does it align with the plan? So whatever it is that you're doing, if it's not immediately obvious whether it's incorporated in the plan or not, you may want to contact a regional program specialist and with their help make the determination as to whether a plan amendment is needed or not. But those are the two general questions that we think about in responding to any question. Number one, does it support a TANF purpose? And number two, is it in the plan?
And the only thing I would add is that it's really the regions are best positioned to start working with tribes when they have questions about will this be applicable to put in the plan. But obviously, with the upcoming vaccines that are going to be coming out, we're going to want to be thoughtful about how we can look at this and is there a role for tribal TANF programs, and we're happy to do so.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Stan. While Stan was responding, this is to Consuelog. I'm not sure who that is who asked about the data tech position, but Stephen Bassford responded with an explanation about what a data tech or manager looks like at their program, and it is in the chat for everyone to see. So that was very helpful. Thank you, Stephen. Any other questions? We've got a new, okay. We thanked Stephen, he said you're welcome. It's 10:40, so we've got about 5 more minutes. Last questions, please. Do submit them into the checks.
I'll take a moment just to talk a little bit about the ACF Tribal Advisory Committee, because folks may not know. But there is and Tilford Denver would be a good person to talk to about this, because I think that he may be the chair of that. I can't remember, but he's had experience with it before in the past. And Whitney Jones from SPIPA has also been involved in the past, as well as others. But at ACF, there is an advisory committee that has the opportunity to have interaction with most, if not all, ACF programs. And the meetings are usually scheduled quarterly, and OFA often does sort of a presentation about what's happening within our program. But it also provides an opportunity, I think, for tribes to come to ACF programs and say, these are the priorities and the things that matter to us. And we'd like our priorities to be reflected in sort of cross-cutting technical assistance. So if there's an issue that's important to your community and you think there's a place for TANF, but maybe there's not just a place for TANF, but there's also a place for child support enforcement or Head Start or child care or the Family and Youth Services Bureau programs. Whatever programs may touch that particular issue, it would be great if people came to or notified their ACF Tribal Advisory Committee member, hey, bring this up. And particularly, I think it's valuable for cross-cutting issues, number one. And number two, I think it'll be most valuable if the tribes come to those meetings having a sense of priorities that they would like to see ACF address. So I just thought I'd share a little bit about that as a mechanism for making the needs of tribes known to ACF programs.
Thank you, Stan. That was helpful. Okay, we've got about 3 more minutes. Any last questions or anything that Denise or Stan would like to touch on before we close? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Not really, not forever, but.
On that note, Julie, too, I just want to I'll put in
Yeah.
a plug that, of course, as always, your program specialists and the regional program managers are available to continue these conversations and have and be able to answer your questions as they come up. And please know, like, we're all here to support your programs and that you are not alone. As Julie highlighted at the very beginning of this conference, there's a lot of struggle that each program and families and communities are going through, and we want to be able to support you.
Thanks so much,
Yeah,
Mika.
this may be one session in which the difference of meeting virtually and meeting in person where the difference is felt a little bit. It's hard to recreate a live in-person interaction where it is conversational, where we're able to look each other in the eyes in ways that we can't do here. But we're certainly grateful for your participation in this meeting, and like Mika said, just to echo her comments, we remain very interested in hearing ways that we can serve you better. So thanks for taking time and joining us, and thanks to my colleagues. We really do have a great team between the regional staff and the central office staff, and look forward to continue working with you.
Agreed. Thank you, everybody.
Stan. Thank you, Denise. Thanks everyone for taking the time to participate. Yes, thank you. We're going to go ahead and go on break, a 15-minute break from 10:45 to 11. At 11 a.m. we will start session 5, which is client and case management in the time of COVID-19. So we hope that you'll join us. Thank you for joining us for the listening session, and we'll see you in about 15 minutes.